Shalom and welcome to all my brothers and sisters. Thank you so much for coming to this video. I welcome you. Shabbat Shalom to all of my longtime friends and brothers and sisters of all colors, backgrounds. Shabbat Shalom. I hope that you rest well, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Today we're going to be dealing with Proverbs Chapter 8, a section in Proverbs Chapter 8 that is often misunderstood and misinterpreted by Christians or missionaries, Messianics, and others who unknowingly are taught to read the Hebrew Scriptures in this way, beginning with their conclusions, with their beliefs, and trying to find sound bites. Now again, it's not their fault. Many of them, it's not their fault. They mean this genuinely from their hearts. They go to a chapter in Tanakh, in the Hebrew Scriptures, and they parachute down or cherry-pick passages to whatever sounds like something they're trying to propose or perpetuate, is used to support their theology. Now, this is like putting the cart before the horse. This is what gets you in trouble. Now, as Israelites, as the Jews, we have always learned that it's very important to study the entire Hebrew Scriptures on a daily basis, carefully, very carefully, to study the context of every single chapter, studying carefully and meditating and reflecting on what exactly we're reading. Let the Hebrew Scriptures, the words of Elohim, teach us what he's trying to say, not coming in with our conclusions. It's like working backwards. It's like going to a court hearing and hearing only the prosecution and not hearing the defense. You're beginning by just listening to one side and saying, you know what? That's it. Now that I know this, I know that this is what it is. Instead of hearing both sides. So now you're going to hear another side of this. Proverbs chapter 8. Now, in Proverbs chapter 8, there's a section that begins in verse 22 that is used by Christians and missionaries and Messianics and others to prove that the Gospel of John, chapter 1, is completely supported by the Hebrew Scriptures. Let's take a look at the passage, the section of Proverbs chapter 8 that they read and they connect with John chapter 1, the Gospel of John, which basically says the Word was there with God and the Word was God, and there was basically a co-creator. It goes on and on that Yeshua or Jesus or however they call him was there with God himself, meaning he was not alone in this process. There was a co-creator, there was a Trinity, whatever being the case. Now what they'll use, because we will say this is not supported in the Hebrew Scriptures, no support for God having anyone with him. We use examples throughout the Tanakh where God is explicit. Isaiah chapter 42 verse 8, I share my glory with no one. What about the creation? Isaiah 44 verse 24, I am Yehovah who made everything. I created the heavens by myself and stretched out the earth of my own accord, and so on and so forth. Deuteronomy 32 verse 39, I am he, and there is no God with me. Malachi chapter 2 verse 10, have we not all one Father and one God that created us? Very, very clear, very explicit. But again, Christians, Messianics, and others will use these passages. It's not their fault. This is how they were taught. This is what they're trained to do. Unknowingly will parachute down on a passage. For example, this is Proverbs chapter 8. Open it up, Proverbs 8. They begin with verse 22, and listen carefully. It sounds very much like the Gospel of John. And this is their sound bites that they use, okay? The Lord created me at the beginning of his course, or his creation, as the first of his creations of old. In the distant past I was fashioned, at the beginning, at the origin of earth. There was still no deep when I was brought forth, no springs rich in water. Before the foundations of the mountains were sunk, before the hills I was born, I was there. He had not yet made the earth and fields, or the world's first clumps of clay. I was there when he set the heavens into place, and he fixed the horizon upon the deep. And it goes on and on and on. I was there from the very, very get-go. And Christians, Messianics, cult members, they will say, this proves that Yeshua is the Son of God, that there was a co-creator, or second in command. There was someone with God there with him. Period. This is the proof. Because we will say John 1 doesn't make any, it doesn't fit. They go, no, Jew. Proverbs chapter 8, answer. So here's the answer, very simply. Again, we as a Jewish people, we believe that we cannot read Scripture this way. This is how you get in trouble theologically. What is the answer to this? How can we answer this logically? By careful examination. I'll tell you how. We go back and we begin with Proverbs chapter 8, and starting in verse 1. What is going on here? What is being spoken about? Is it speaking about the Son of God? Let's see what it says. It is wisdom calling. Right there, first verse. It is wisdom. Read it for yourself. Proverbs chapter 8, starting in verse 1. Again, reading in context. It is wisdom calling. Now listen carefully. Understanding, raising her voice. Wisdom. Now this is supposed to be wisdom, metaphorically speaking. Again, I did a video last about figurative and literal. This is metaphoric. Understanding, raising her voice. She takes her stand at the topmost heights, by the wayside, at the crossroads, near the gates, at the city entrance, at the entryways. She shouts. And it goes on and on and on. It's about the wisdom of God in the feminine form. All the way through to 22. I was there in the beginning. The wisdom of Elohim. If it's not clear enough, flip over to chapter 9. It continues. It's not stop. It doesn't begin in 22 and end where the Christians and the missionaries say. It goes on and on and on. Starting in verse 9, it keeps going. Wisdom. Again, wisdom. Not the Son of God, not the Trinity. Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn her 7 pillars. She has prepared the feast, mixed the wine, and also set the table. She has sent out her maids to announce on the heights of the town. And it goes on and on and on, over and over again. But do I need to read more, or do you get the point? You must study in context. If you don't study in context, you're going to get yourselves in trouble. Anybody can create whatever theology they want and made up beliefs based on coming to the text with your conclusion. I am this. Or Jesus is the Messiah, Yeshua is the Messiah. Now that I know this, he died for my sins, now let me go through the Hebrew Scriptures and find sound bites that sound like Yeshua or Jesus, or sounds like a skin tone, like these fake Hebrew Israelites, or some other thing. You come to the Scriptures with your preconceived notion, your conclusions. You cannot do that. You must read carefully in context. I hope that this was understandable. I hope this was helpful. Again, everyone, I can't say this enough. Context, context, context. You must study in context. Put aside the New Testament. Just put it aside and study the Hebrew Scriptures in context so that you can understand what's really trying to convey itself to you through the words and the spirit of Elohim. Shalom, everyone.